Mike Tyson's life off the ring was just as intense and complicated as his fights inside it. What if I told you the legendary boxer's love life was a whirlwind of wild nights, Hollywood drama, and relationships the world barely knew about? Mike Tyson wasn't always the confident figure the world saw. Growing up in Brownsville, he was tough but struggled to trust people because he'd been burned before. Women in his neighborhood were intimidated by his rough attitude, making it hard for him to connect. When Tyson got rich, he dived headfirst into a chaotic party lifestyle. Surrounded by friends who flaunted their wealth, Mike was notorious for keeping multiple women on call, throwing wild parties, and indulging in everything at once. Mike soon mingled with the fashion world's finest, meeting models and celebrities in an international jet-setting scene. One encounter introduced him to Naomi Campbell, sparking a passionate yet turbulent romance that showcased the clash between their worlds. Despite his strong chemistry, Mike's relationship with Robin was full of tension. Their time together was marked by clashes between her stage mom-driven ambitions, Mike's partying habits, and harsh realities behind the glitz, revealing a volatile mix few knew about. Mike's attempt to juggle countless women across cities led to a frenzied lifestyle that even he admits would be unthinkable today. His endless pursuit of pleasure resulted in chaos and exhaustion, burning the candle at both ends. Scenes that looked glamorous hid uncomfortable truths. For instance, an outing with Robin exposed the divide between Mike's roots and her privileged world. She was uncomfortable around what Mike considered everyday life, like recognizing old friends who were dealers, showing their worlds were poles apart. Mike Tyson's offering life was a volatile mix of raw emotion, chaotic excess, and complicated relationships that the public rarely saw. It's a stark reminder that behind the legend is a man wrestling with trust, love, and his own demons, a story that challenges how we see fame and power. Mike Tyson's early struggles with trust and love. I remember thinking, wow, he must really love me. I remember feeling that, not thinking it. He's just a regular person like everyone else, that he's not this animal that people think he is. He's just a beautiful person with a big heart, very giving and sensitive and emotional. I know his past, and so you can't just overlook it. I made to show him that there's people he can trust, because it's very hard for him to trust people. He's been burned a lot, and people used to look at him as an easy target. They were like, he's someone that he has so much money, he's always throwing it around. I might as well get a piece of it, That's how people looked at it before. Mike Tyson grew up in Brownsville with a tough reputation, but deep down he struggled with trust and love. Women in his neighborhood were scared of him because of his crude attitude when young. He didn't have the smooth game to talk to them, so his friends would often approach the girls for him. Even after he got rich and famous, Mike wasn't confident around women. He often felt misunderstood and alone. He had been hurt before and was wary of trusting anyone. His tough exterior hid a sensitive and emotional person underneath, making it hard for him to build genuine connections with women. This early struggle with trust shaped much of Mike's relationships later on. As he navigated fame, these old wounds influenced how he loved and who he let in. It was a side of Iron Mike the world seldom saw. This battle between vulnerability and toughness defined his early path to understanding love and trust. The wild lifestyle of fame and excess. When Tyson got rich, he dived headfirst into a chaotic party lifestyle, surrounded by friends who flaunted their wealth. Mike was notorious for keeping multiple women on call, throwing wild parties, and indulging in everything at once. He got too self-indulgent, having 10 women hanging out in his hotel room in Vegas. And when he had to go down for the press conference, he'd bring one and leave the rest in a room for when he was finished. Sometimes he'd get naked, put the championship belt on, and have sex with a girl. Whenever there was a willing partner, he wanted to do it. The crazy part was that he was trying to satisfy each one of them, which was impossible. Those ladies were nuts after a while. He put together a Rolodex of girls in different cities. He had his Vegas girls, his LA girls, his Florida girls, and his Detroit girls. Mike just went totally off the track, burning the candle at both ends, training hard and partying just as hard. He was drinking and fighting with these women all night, doing the kind of stupid, selfish things that young kids with some loot do. This fast-paced lifestyle led him to the peak of excess, but also chaos in his personal life. and what seemed glamorous was actually exhausting and destructive. Encounters with fashion's elite and famous women. Mike Tyson soon found himself mingling with the fashion world's elite, introduced to some of the most glamorous and powerful figures that the international jet-setting scene could offer. It was a new world for Iron Mike, one filled with luxurious parties, exclusive clubs, and encounters with the most beautiful women on the planet. Among these unforgettable meetings was a chance introduction to Naomi Campbell, a teenager at the time who would soon rise to become one of the highest-paid models worldwide. Their connection was immediate and intense, bound by a shared passion and a mutual fascination. Naomi, with her strong English accent and undeniable confidence, seemed intrigued by the raw power and charisma Mike exuded. They quickly became inseparable, unable to keep away from one another despite the chaos surrounding them. However, their relationship was far from smooth, marked by fights and the constant push and pull of two strong-willed individuals. Naomi, having been raised in a privileged environment, had ambitions and dreams that sometimes clashed with Mike's troubled past and wild lifestyle. Their affair exposed the stark contrast between their worlds, highlighting the struggles of merging fame, power, and personal baggage. Yet, despite the turbulence, their romance remains one of the most compelling chapters in the story of Mike Tyson's life beyond the ring. The complicated romance with Robin Givens. Despite his strong chemistry, Mike's relationship with Robin Givens was anything but smooth, filled with tension, drama, and clashing worlds. They met at a time when Mike was indulging heavily in his wild lifestyle, juggling multiple women, parties, and the pressures of fame. Robin, coming from a privileged background with a stage mom deeply invested in her career, represented a different world entirely. Their early days together were marked by passionate moments, but also constant fights, driven by Mike's inability to settle down and Robin's fierce ambition. At times, her mother expressed concern about the relationship, warning that playing with fire could lead to getting burned. This foreshadowed the eventual fallout in their romance, painting a picture of a toxic mix where ambition, fame, and personal demons collided. Mike's candid account reveals how their relationship was far more complicated than the public perceived, capturing the raw struggles beneath the glossy surface. Meanwhile, Robin's portrayal suggested more of a dark romantic horror story, highlighting the conflict and mistrust. The tension between their vastly different lifestyles, Mike's roots rooted in Brooklyn's gritty streets, and Robin's world of glamour and cautious ambition, made this romance volatile from the start. Their story is a vivid reminder of how love can sometimes be as challenging and brutal as the boxing ring itself. Juggling numerous relationships and their consequences. Mike Tyson's lifestyle spiraled into a daunting whirlwind. He was juggling numerous women across different cities, creating what he called a Rolodex of girls, with his Vegas girls, LA girls, Florida girls, and Detroit girls all part of the chaos. This burning of the candle at both ends meant Tyson was training hard, partying just as intensely, drinking heavily, and constantly fighting, not just in the ring but with the women in his life. His behavior was impulsive and selfish, the kind typical of a young man suddenly thrown into immense wealth and fame. Mike admitted he couldn't imagine handling such a lifestyle today, hop from one woman's house to another, constantly seeking the next thrill or escape. This lifestyle wasn't just exhausting, but damaging, fracturing any chance of stability or genuine connection. In the midst of this, Tyson's relationships were anything but simple. They were riddled with tension, misunderstandings, and the pressures of his immense public persona. The constant party scene, filled with excess and wild nights, masked the loneliness he felt underneath. It was a destructive cycle, where the many fleeting encounters failed to fill the emotional void, leaving Mike caught between craving intimacy and pushing people away. His story is a stark reflection of how fame and abundant freedom can lead to chaos rather than contentment, showing the unseen consequences behind the glamour. The reality behind the glamour in New York and Los Angeles. Scenes that looked glamorous hid uncomfortable truths. For instance, An outing with Robin exposed the divide between Mike's roots and her privileged world. She was uncomfortable around what Mike considered everyday life, like recognizing old friends who were dealers, showing their world were poles apart. Mike called his friend John Horn in LA and set up a dinner with Robin. But when he arrived, Robin was there with her sister, her mother, and her publicist. Mike felt a strange chemistry with Robin, but he also noticed her mother's calculating ways, trying to secure a big future for her daughter. Robin's mother was a professional stage mom, investing heavily in her daughter's career aspirations, while Mike, coming from a rough background, was wary of anyone trying to profit off him. One night, while walking in Manhattan, Mike spotted a dope dealer he knew from Brownsville. He slapped five with him openly, which shocked Robin, who was blown away that Mike knew someone like that. She felt mortified to be around such normal people, which in her world was artificial. But to Mike, the neighborhood dealers were just everyday folks. This moment highlighted the cultural and social gap between them. Despite the sparkling lights and fancy parties, Mike's life was deeply connected to his past, and the stark contrast between his world and the glamorous life of those around him often created tension and discomfort. It was a reminder that beneath the surface of fame and fortune lie complex realities few get to see. That divide between the everyday reality Mike knew and the high society world he was entering shaped much of his struggle off the ring. Mike Tyson's off-ring life was a volatile mix of raw emotion, chaotic excess, and complicated relationships that the public rarely saw. It's a stark reminder that behind the legend is a man wrestling with trust, love, and his own demons, a story that challenges how we see fame and power. The explosive lifestyle, filled with wild parties and countless women, revealed a side of Mike that few understood, a man trying to find connection and control in a world that moved too fast for him. His relationships with figures like Naomi Campbell and Robin Givens exposed the clashes between different worlds, highlighting the pressures and vulnerabilities lurking beneath the surface of fame. Even surrounded by luxury and adoration, Mike battled the ghosts of his past, and the consequences of his choices often caught up to him in unexpected ways. This glimpse into his personal life shows the human behind the celebrity myth, full of contradictions, struggles, and raw honesty. Reflecting on Mike's journey, it's clear that greatness doesn't erase flaws, but sometimes magnifies them. When we learn from his story, that behind every legendary figure, there's a complicated story waiting to be told, one that reshapes our understanding of who they really are. So, next time you think of Mike Tyson, remember not just the champion in the ring, but the man navigating a turbulent life far beyond the spotlight.